Good afternoon. This is Angela Bennett from Advice Resolutions. We had the pleasure of visiting the Public Defence Office in Scotland, in Edinburgh, because we are undertaking a project as to how many people are accessing what they call the Public Defence Office. The Public Defence Office undertake free legal work on the behalf of individuals who are charged with an offence in Scotland. Now, who funds them? Right. The Legal Aid Board in Scotland fund the Public Defence Office. So they have the staff, they have the money, they have the skills to offer the free service for people who approach them who are entitled to legal aid. But what the problem is that when you actually use the services of the Public Defence Office, you go there, you present your case, but they say, well, we can't take your case, we're too busy. Well, hold on. If you're funded by the Scottish Legal Aid Board, surely you've got the staffing, you've got the funding, they've got millions, they can take as many cases as they can, and they've got the humans to actually do the work. And there isn't a shortage of money because the funding is direct. It's within the source itself providing the service. It's a bit like an arm's reach situation whereby you set up a company, then within that company you can provide the services. Anyway, so we've spoken to the lawyers at the Public Defence Office and they've directly told us that we don't have the capacity. Well, hang on a minute, as I said, you must have the capacity. The lady was very sheepish with me, very off slightly, ever so, and telling me that she can't take these cases because it's too much, there's no capacity, and go back to legal aid. Well, that's a shame, because if they're getting all this money, and they should actually be responsible to take all number of cases, then that should be on offer to the potential defendant. So here we are, the client has no defence representation. We have the Public Defender's Office who are telling me that they can't take these cases, although they've been paid a salary, they've got the funding, they've got a big, capital grant, whatever it is, from the legal aid. Now that's really shamefully embarrassing. So what are they doing with the money? It's you and I paying these taxes to keep the legal aid business afloat all over the UK, particularly Scotland. So what are they doing with the money? It should be open for people to be able to access justice. Now, what happens if you can't access justice in the criminal justice system? Do you really think you're going to get a freer crack of the whip? Because at the end of the day, who are you with no qualification? You're not on any roll qualified as a solicitor to be able to take on a procurator fiscal, as they call them in Scotland, and a prosecutor in England. You're not on the same level as them, and you're not in the same league, and therefore anything that the procurator fiscal does or the CPS does in England, they will know what they're doing, they will know the tactics, they will know the strategy. And who are you to know? You can rely on the European Convention on Human Rights, because if you don't have representation, you're likely to end up in a situation where your liberty is at stake. We can look at Article 5, that's liberty. What if the crime that you've been told that you committed, there was no illegality to it? That would then be Article 7, where you shouldn't be punished for a crime that didn't exist at the time. There's also Article 8, which is, right to respect private family life and correspondence. So what if you can engage that in that, it's an intrusion into your life to prevent you from accessing justice for the use of criminal defence lawyers and advocates. And if it turns out that if you're black, or you're people of the global majority around the world, people of colour, and you can't access justice, and it's disproportionate because the Public Defender's Office says that you can't access their service because they don't have any money, would that potentially end up as a wider cohort of people who end up not receiving justice? Because remember, we as a colour people in society, we're overrepresented in the criminal justice system, but we are underrepresented in society, in this country of Scotland, and also in England, and also in Wales. So what's the answer? How do you then generate to give back to make sure that people of colour are getting justice? Well, do you change the trajectory? Do you change the law? Do you change the rules? Do you look at positive action? Do you look at, positively discriminating? Remember talking back to seeing the lady in the Public Defence Office who says, oh, we can't take these cases because we're too busy. Well, are you too busy to cause discrimination for people of colour? Are you too busy to offer up your time so that another person of colour doesn't get discriminated against in the criminal justice system? Are you too busy not to focus on the inadequacies of the criminal justice system in the UK that leaves black people with no right of access to justice and a fair access to the criminal justice system? Think about it. And if you think all of these issues put together as a whole, that black people, people of colour, time and time again, and we know David Lammy has said this, that black people, people of colour, in the criminal justice system will face time and time again illegality, misfeasance, malfeasance and non-feasance and criminality against them by the criminal justice themselves when they don't get access to justice. So think about this very carefully. The Public Defence Office ought to be held to account by not taking cases because they're being funded, they have responsibility and they're accountable, and the balance of the scales of justice are clearly not showing with the Public Defence Office. So I ask the Public Defence Office to this challenge to step up and explain why they're not taking cases. And they are all over Scotland, not just in Edinburgh, not just in Glasgow, they're all over Scotland. They can transfer their caseload anywhere within Scotland. So the challenge is, will the Public Defence Office in Scotland start offering black people, people of colour, a service to access justice? Because if they're not, they could be held out to be discriminatory and liable for discrimination. And remember that if you're a public authority in Scotland and anywhere else in the UK, you can discriminate against someone by doing exactly what it seems the Public Defence Office are doing in Scotland. And remember, as a public authority, you have a responsibility under the Equality Act, section 149, brackets 1, to make sure you engender and you foster good relations and you have no discrimination. So I'd love the Public Defence Office to explain to us, Advice Resolutions, why they don't represent black people who look to them for help as a criminal defence matter. And that's what I expect to get a response in, and I'll be waiting. And as soon as I hear whether or not, I'll let you, the people, know. And you can determine whether or not the Public Defence Office is actually there for people of colour. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.